Hey, welcome back to the series that we've been doing on Born to Die. I've been going track by track to see if I can find a deeper meaning within each of the songs. Today we're on the next track, which is titled That's What Makes Us Girls. So let's just get started.
Remember how we used to party up all night, sneaking out, looking for a taste of real life, drinking in a small town firelight.
Pabst Blue Ribbon on ice.
Sweet 16 and we had arrived, walking down the streets as they whistle high, high, stealing police cars with the senior guys. Teacher said we'd never make it out alive. There she was, my little best friend, high heels in her hands, swaying in the wind. Oh, she starts to cry, mascara running down her little Bambi eyes. Wonder how I hate those guys.
Alright, so before it gets into the chorus, let's just kind of recap that first verse and pre-chorus. It seems like the song is going to be somewhat of a coming-of-age song for teenage girls, and I came to that conclusion just because of the lyric that says, Sweet 16, we had arrived, walking down the streets and they whistle high. That kind of makes me thinking of being catcalled, and I feel like that predominantly happens to women, and it's kind of gross that it's like so young considering they're only 16. That's an unfortunate truth of the way our culture kind of is, but it does seem like that's kind of what the song is about so far.
This is what makes us girls. We all look for heaven and we put love first. Something that we die for, it's a curse. Don't cry about it, don't cry about it. This is what makes us girls. We don't stick together cause we put love first. Don't cry about it, don't cry about it. It's all gonna happen.
Okay, so that added some interesting perspective. It said, this is what makes us girls. We all look for heaven and we put love first. Something that we died for, it's a curse. Don't cry about it. This is what makes us girls. We don't stick together. We put love first. Don't cry about him. It's all going to happen. So it seems like she's kind of tackling the idea of like girl power in a way, just because she's saying that she might have this friend group, and as they get older, they're going to start branching off into relationships, which is a very normal thing to do. But then you find that you slowly start abandoning your friendships because of a relationship. I think good relationships are able to balance both of them, but I guess when you're young and you're a teenager and you're a teenage girl specifically, you don't think about that in the moment. You just have someone that could be potentially like the love of your life, so clearly you're going to put all of your time and effort into that person, and then it just cycles back because the minute that that relationship does not work is when you get your friends back and you start that whole thing of like, I'll never do this again, knowing damn well it'll happen the minute that you get someone else. And I feel like that happens on both sides too. It's not exclusive to girls, but in the case of the song, it is.
And that's where the beginning of the end begun. Everybody knew that we had too much fun. We were skipping school and drinking on the job with the boss. Sweet 16 and we had arrived. Baby's table dancing at the local dive, cheering our names in the pink spotlight, drinking cherry schnapps in the velvet night. Yo, we used to go break in to the hotel, glamour and we'd swim, running from the cops in our black bikini tops, screaming, get us while we're hot, get us while we're hot. Come on, take a shot. This is what makes us girls. We all look for heaven and we put love first. Something that we die for, it's a curse. Don't cry about it, don't cry about it. This is what makes us girls. We don't stick together cause we put love first. Don't cry about it, don't cry about it. It's all gonna happen.
Alright, so that second verse said, and that's where the beginning of the end begun. Everything we knew, we had too much fun. We're skipping school and drinking on the job with the boss. Sweet 16 had arrived. Tables dancing at the local bar, cheering our names in pink spotlight, drinking cherry snaps in the velvet night. Overall, I think the second verse is just continuing on with the same theme of growing up as a teenage girl. But I also think it's tackling how quickly women have to grow up or are forced to grow up. I think about that with table dancings at the local bars, cheering our names in pink spotlight. And of course, you could do that for yourself, and a lot of people probably do that. But I think it's also a project of being sexualized earlier in life rather than men. So people typically engage in those behaviors earlier and earlier because it's still talking about Sweet 16, yet they're in a local dive bar. So it kind of just shows that these people are growing up, and they probably had a great time doing it, but it just shows how quickly they had to grow up, and that's a product of being a girl. I actually haven't even seen the movie, but it also just reminds me all of these lyrics of that movie that Selena Gomez is in. It's like the Spring Break movie. I have that running through my head as this is like playing for some reason.
The prettiest in crowd that you had ever seen. Ribbons in her hair and her eyes gleamed mean. A freshman generation of degenerate beauty queens. And you know something? They were the only friends I ever had. We got into trouble and when stuff got bad, I got sent away. I was waving on the train platform, crying cause I know I'm never coming back.
Okay, wait, let me read that bridge. It says, the prettiest in crowd that you'd ever seen, ribbons in her hair and her eyes gleamed mean, a freshman generation of degenerate beauty queens, and you know something, those are the only friends I've ever had. We got into trouble, and when stuff got bad, I got sent away. I was waiting on the train platform because you know I ain't never coming back. I feel like it's another thing of a product of that the friendship was real. I mentioned in an earlier verse that they ditch them when they're in a relationship, but maybe when it's good, it's obviously good, and those were the best relationships that they've ever had friendship-wise, because those people had their backs when they needed it. Then either they grew up, or maybe they moved away, and just things got separated. Then she's also just acknowledging that the bond that you get by growing up in a similar way is kind of unbreakable. If you grew up as a teenage girl or a girl, you can relate to a lot of these things, and that's maybe why they have this like camaraderie.
This is what makes us girls. We all look for heaven and we put love first. Something that we die for, it's a curse. Don't cry about it, don't cry about it. This is what makes us girls. We don't stick together cause we put love first. Don't cry about it, don't cry about it. It's all gonna happen.
That even sounds like cop cars in the background. Alright, so that was the end of This Is What Makes Us Girls. I think this is a great song on the album. I think it's interesting that this is the closer of the album. I'm not really sure how that leads us off in the theme. I'm sure you guys will maybe give me some perspective on that. But overall, I think as a body of work, I feel like this was a very encompassing album of talking about adolescence. I'm not sure if that's what the goal of it was, but I feel like all of these songs tackled her early adulthood and sometimes even teenage years about love, drug abuse, tribulations, just kind of everything that encompasses her early life. And I really enjoyed this project as a whole. And some of my comments did tell me that there's like a deluxe version called the Paradise Edition of this album. So if I continue on with like a Lana Del Rey series, would you want me to do the Paradise versions with the bonus tracks, or would you want me to move on to a different album? Let me know in the comment section. That way I can kind of decide where to go from here. Thank you for watching. Again, tell me if you have any perspective on the song. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.